Welcome to A Tale of Two Scribes. I'm your host, Eric P. Bishop. This is a podcast where interesting people come and tell about the stories they've crafted. As for myself, I'm an author. I've created novels, short stories, novellas, and even poetry. If you'd like to find out more about what I've done, please go to my website, ericpbishop.com. Thanks, and enjoy the journey. Welcome to another episode of A Tale of Two Scribes. Tonight, I am pleased to have my friend Yasmin Angoe on. Hello, Yasmin. How are you?
Eric, I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. We've obviously chatted recently, but I don't think we've seen each other since book signing in Greenville. And for the life of me, couldn't tell you if that was 6 months ago or a year ago, or I don't know, but it was sometime in the not too distant past.
Yeah. It's got to be nearly a year ago, close to when the last book came out.
When the last one came out. Yeah,
Last.
that is true. It was with and it ends with night. So, well, it's good to see you virtually again.
Good to see
Um,
you too.
one of these days I'll see you again at a conference or a book signing or some sort of thing when our paths interact. So, crazy business though. You don't know, we were talking offline obviously about conferences and stuff, and it's kind of strange. You'll see someone maybe repetitively at a conference, and then you stop going to one or they stop going to one, and then you might not see them. There's some writers I haven't seen now in like 5 years that I saw like every summer for 3 or 4 years in a row, and then all of a sudden they're still there. I'm still here, but
Mhm.
we don't see each other.
That's the way
Well,
this industry goes, right? It's kind of crazy.
it's a very interesting industry. We'll leave it as mysterious and interesting.
Yes.
So, but the cool thing is, and we've talked about this before, is you get to follow your passion. You get to follow something, and I think that's what not enough people in life get to do.
Mhm.
So we're blessed in that regard. On the flip side, we're also following our passion with a creative endeavor, which the term starving artist comes from something, and we both know probably where that comes from. So,
Mhm.
but it's okay. We get to follow our passion. So, um, we'll probably end with not what she seems, but you do have a novel that is out on when is it? First, second?
Are you talking about for not what she seems?
Not what she seems. When's that out?
It's August 1st.
August. Why did I say October? August
Because the
1st. Okay.
dates have changed for it, and then it
Okay.
changed again when it got AF Amazon First Reads. So now it's August 1st.
Oh, so they push it up for Amazon First Reads? Okay.
Hmm.
Well, let's start with that. So, how did will that still be going on though? I guess it won't be going on until
It'll
publication date,
Yeah, so it's for the month of July.
the month of
So
July. Okay.
yeah, so until I guess July 31st, then anyone can if they have Amazon Prime, they can click it and
Okay.
get the book for free, which you should. And I think you get like two books for free. So you can get if you have Amazon Prime. So you can
Gotcha.
get that and another book. And if you don't have Amazon Prime, I believe it's only like 199.
Okay. Well, that's okay because after it comes out, we still want people to go out and get the ebook or the paperback.
Absolutely.
Want people to get the copies for sure.
Yeah.
Um, talk about let's actually start with that. How did, and I know you have an agent, we've talked offline, but how did things open up to working with Amazon with Thomas and Mercer? Um,
Yeah, so yeah, it was through my agent. I got my agent
mhm.
maybe 2020, about
Okay.
May-ish of 2020, and the book, her name was Night, was already written. It was a different title, of course, then. And
Hmm.
so she and I, Melissa and I, did a couple rounds of editing together,
Okay.
and then she subbed it out around about, yeah, during that summer. And
During the
then it
summer.
wasn't
Okay.
until August that, well, we worked on it. My bad. Let me back up a little bit. We worked on it for the summer.
Right.
And then she sent it out in August, which kind
Okay.
of lined up with the same time that they announced that I had won the Eleanor Taylor Bland Award
Okay.
uh, from Sync, or Sisters in Crime.
Hmm.
And so that kind of helped get the word out for the book. And that's when the offers from houses came. And then, we talked with
Hmm.
my editor Mega from Thomas and Mercer, and she
Okay.
just was really excited about it. I mean, everybody else was too, but it just felt like a better connection with her.
Hmm.
And so then that's how my relationship with Thomas and Mercer began.
That's pretty cool. And so was that your first agent? First
Melissa
or
was not. She was actually, because I have been trying to do this for like over 20 years. So she was actually my third agent.
wow.
Yeah.
Perseverance. That's the
Mhm.
one thing that people I think get into this and I know when I got into it in 2014, I
Mhm.
had no idea what I was doing. I had a story to write, but I also had no idea how the industry worked.
Same.
And I thought, hey, you write a book and what do you do with it? Well, I got done writing it. I was like, oh, I looked online. Oh, you need an agent. Oh, okay, that can't be that hard. Ha 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 ha.
It's super hard.
Just to do that first step, just to get
Yep.
that agent is a challenge. And then, getting a manuscript worked out with them that you're like, okay, we're ready to, go on sub. We're ready to send this out to editors at publishing houses.
Mhm.
There's your next hurdle. And then you could be waiting quite a long time to just hear back from them.
Yep. Very much so. And I mean, you said you started it off in 2014. That's when you did?
2014 was when I finished my first. Yeah, I'd written a lot before that, but that's when I actually kind of put my nose to the grind and said, I've got a story that needs to be told. And that's when I finished it was September of 2014.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. So my first book I finished in like 2003. And so I can't when you were talking about, you went on the internet and stuff, I'm even trying, I was like, did we have internet
Did we
then? I
have
think we
internet
did.
then?
We had like AOL, right? AOL.
You got the
And
modem
so I
going
was
for you.
like, I don't know how realized that you might need an agent or whatever, but like that was the time of you. I don't know if you recall like that big, huge, like publishers marketplace book.
Mhm.
It was really big and thick, and that's where it had all the listings of the agents in there. And I
Yes.
just remember going through it and like highlighting whoever I thought, best aligned with, that book at the time.
Yep.
And so everything was very much like snail mail and everything. And so
Mhm.
you really, back then I think agents kind of got back to you a little bit faster, or they did a little bit more because you had to
Mhm.
self send them a self-addressed stamp envelope. And so,
Right.
getting back your own envelope that you paid a stamp for just to be rejected is really like anyway, we don't have to talk about that. But anyway, that's how it started with me. Okay.
I know authors that said they have wallpaper of like their rejection letters, like one of their walls they put up there that they finally got their foot in the door and they're like, I wallpapered a wall just so it gave me the motivation to keep pushing.
No
So,
way. That just angers me. I think I have a letter or something like stuck somewhere, but like, and every time I see it, I get like really annoyed because I just don't like to see bad things. But
yeah.
then again, I don't like to throw it away either. So I don't know what's going on with me, but
I'm a pack rat, but I
yeah,
don't want to see
that's
this
it.
thing.
I'm a pack rat. That's what it is. I just maybe I want to remind myself how, I was rejected so much back in the
Mhm.
day for all these years. But
Yeah.
anyway, it's
Well,
all
but
good.
but all that rejection, and here you are now. You have your fourth novel in print here in August. So, I think the takeaway for anyone that hears that is that guess what? The journeys can be hard. It can be a lot of bumps in the road, but if you persevere, if you stick with it, the sky's the limit. You just don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. And, we've interacted for a while now, a couple of years. And so I've, been able to see, as each novel comes on Amazon and seeing like the ratings and reviews you're getting, things that obviously there's people out there that get more, but there's so many people out there that get less.
Mhm.
And, so to get to that point where you're getting such positive feedback from people and it really shows how your hard work and determination really has paid off and will continue to as you keep producing pretty you're only as good as your last book, so you got to write another one and then another one and another one.
Another one, yep, especially when you got kids in school that need to be paid, got bills.
We are all in that same. I mean, I've talked to people before, and I've said I've got a day job. I might one day. Maybe I not won't have a day job. Maybe I can find a way to sell enough books to to provide for my South Pacific Island and my jet and my my all my imaginary dreams that I think won't probably bring me happiness anyways. But
Right.
yeah. In the
Yeah.
meantime. I'm a night hawk writing. When we get done tonight, I'll be sitting on my couch editing my book that's are woefully behind that I'm putting
Mm,
out later this year.
mm,
But but it's fun. Again, I've told people before, and I've mentioned this in other podcasts, is everything's perspective and everything is what you prioritize in life. So if you want to write a book, please, I implore people to try it, but you're going to
mhm.
give something up to write that book.
Yeah, that's true.
Whether it's, and I would say don't give up time with your family, hold that sacred. But,
Mm.
maybe Netflix isn't that important. Maybe,
Really?
yeah, I'm sorry. And I know you like naps too, but naps, Bon Jovi's got a song, Live While I'm Alive, Sleep When I'm Dead. You could employ that sometimes.
Yeah, that sounds a little morbid, but yeah.
Sounds morbid. Maybe you'll live longer if you take your naps. So you might
Yeah,
outlive me because I don't nap.
a
So
good siesta once in a while. You just go and nap.
I think what was it like 2 weeks ago? I was doing a fast.
Mhm.
I did fast for about 9 weeks. I do it I started on a Sunday night and wouldn't eat till Tuesday morning, and I did that for I don't know 9, 10 weeks straight. And so one of the days I was getting ready to do it, I was just like, or I was doing it, and my kids were here. It was like 10:30 at night, and I'm like, I gotta go to bed. And my daughter's like, what is wrong with you, dude? Why are you going to bed at 10:30? And I'm like, I'm
Mhm.
exhausted. I have no energy. She's like, eat. And I'm like, I'm trying to kind of take care of my system and try this thing. And but yeah, so that's the one time I could understand earlier bedtimes or maybe even as dramatic as a nap.
Right. I mean, listen, I think I would rather eat than take a nap. So, like, I don't even understand when you said you were fasting. I don't know that language. Okay. So,
Well, so full disclosure, so I got to the end of last year, 2023, and I just got to that spot where I needed to hit to where I was like, okay, I'm not taking care of myself. I'm at a weight that I'm not comfortable with.
yeah,
And it was probably earlier when I realized that, and I started coming up with a game plan. And I just said, we'll start that January 1st. And most people don't stick to stuff. Um,
I
but I've
get
learned the last couple years, if I want something, I can do it. It's just not an issue of determination. I can torture myself by not eating or not doing certain things. So that's what I did. I started doing that early part of the year. Very strict, very restrictive for a couple months, and it paid off.
you.
And then
Hmm.
of course I started saying, okay, I can put this back in my system. I can do that. And I just hit a spot where I just kind of like then started just like not hitting any more goals, and so
Hmm.
I just mixed it up again. So one of the things I said was, let me try. I know some people do intermittent fasting. I didn't want to do that, so I said, let me try, a 36-hour fast every week. Mondays worked all day because I didn't have my kids on normally unless it's summer schedule, so I could be cranky by myself and just
Hmm.
drink water all day. So yeah, I know you're looking at me like, dude, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, I especially don't know how you do it with the kids, considering like when they eat, then the food is smelling real great. And how in the world do you, no wonder you're extra cranky when they're around, because
And
how do you,
they'd make me cook too. It's like,
ooh,
Dad, I need dinner. And that's just like, Chick-fil-A is not that far away, yo. Jump in the car. What are you doing to me? So, yeah. One night my daughter told me I was really especially cranky after making dinner. So, I haven't done it. I'm done with it. I'm done with it for now. So,
my goodness.
yeah, it was not as hard as you'd think. One day I'm going to do like a 3 or 5 day fast. I will make sure one of my kids that stretch, but I'm going to see just mentally if I can handle that. Because supposedly by day three, day four, you feel pretty good. I never felt bad doing it, honestly. It's not that I wasn't, I know I had that one night I got real tired, but it wasn't that I couldn't function or I felt really crummy. I think just it wasn't very long either. That's not that long of a time period, but I did realize I like to eat. So I
And I
know.
like to as well. That's why I'm listening to all this and I'm just
I
like
know.
smiling,
Yeah, you're
nod,
just smart and
smiling, nod.
smart. You're one of the minions, like, okay, whatever. Yep, 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 sure, yep. What is
I'm
wrong with
gonna
this
eat
guy?
a double cheeseburger for your sake. You let me know when when you're on your fasting, and then I'll eat extra for the
Sure.
both of us, and I'll let you know every moment of it
You'll
too.
send me pictures, won't you,
Sure, sure
of this
will. Yep,
heaping double cheeseburger with bacon and onions and whatever else on it. And yeah.
absolutely.
Have a good piece of chocolate cake for me too. So
Oh yes, my like some of my that's like my favorite. So yes.
no, you got I'm aware you have a sweet tooth. You've
I
mentioned it in the
really do.
past. So
Yeah, 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 yeah. I like chocolate cake, but when I don't feel like chewing because I'm also lazy, then I'll just drink a milkshake so I don't have to chew.
you are not lazy.
I
That's
really
great.
am when it
Okay.
comes to like I'm so lazy, I don't want to chew things, so I'll just like have a milkshake and drink it down, drink my calories and my sugar.
Ah, you're funny. Well, let's talk about the way you're not lazy because you have a series of three books behind you. So you started writing in the really the early or took it serious, I guess, for finishing. If you finish a novel, you're taking it serious or you're putting
Mhm,
effort into it, whether you think it's going to get published or not. So that was
mhm.
the early part of 2000s. So take us through then, because you've got a trilogy behind you there, your Nina Knight series. So what was that time frame like when you got that that first novel done until you actually got it in Her Name is Night published?
Yeah. So when I got the first novel done, my first child was, only like 2 years old or something like that. So and my spouse was in the military. So
Okay.
he was about to deploy and everything. And when it wasn't looking like, I was gonna get like a book deal and become wealthy and famous at that time, then I just really set the book to the side and decided, especially when we found out that he was gonna be deployed.
Mm,
But then I was just like, I'm going to take care of family,
yeah.
and concentrate on him being deployed and things like that. And we were also PCSing to a different base, so
Okay.
that's where I spent. So I took a detour
Mm,
from writing for for a while,
okay.
for almost 20 years,
Okay.
and finished up my degree. That's when I became a teacher, so I was teaching English
Hmm.
and doing all of that stuff while we were in the military, family and doing all that stuff, right?
Okay.
And so it wasn't until maybe 2010 that I started thinking about, Nina, the character,
Hmm.
because then we had moved to South Carolina, and then there was like all these life changes, and
Hmm.
my father had recently passed, so I was, trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, and
Hmm.
what brought me joy that
Right.
hadn't, like I didn't have all this time. And that's when I was like, you know what, writing had always brought me joy
Hmm.
ever since I was a kid, and so I should get back to that.
Hmm.
And so I played around with it a little bit, but really wasn't until 2018 that I sat down and was like, I need to like get all these different feelings out
Hmm.
about, the change in life, my parent being gone, and all these other things. And those are all the stuff that, if you've ever read Her Name is Night, that
Hmm.
Nina kind of goes through: found family, loss of family, love and kids and all this other stuff, or her adopted sort of adopted kid, things like that, were all things that I was kind of thinking about. And so yeah, it was
Hmm.
2018 that I really sat down and was like, this is what makes me happy. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to like really go for trying to get this published somehow. And it had to be traditional because I could not afford, nor do I have the wherewithal and the smarts like you to do things like independently. I just
Yeah.
cannot. I can't market myself. If you ask me what my book is about, I'll be like, "Ah, ah, ah, ah," that's how I sound, because I can't condense
Whatever.
it into a couple of sentences. So it was just like, I have to, at the top of 2020, I'm going to start subbing my book out to to agents to see who
Hmm.
wants it, and that's going to be what happens. And so that's what I did. And so that's how I got here to, the first book, and then, well, the first book, and then, after I got my deal, then the second and third came out, and then now the fourth,
Hmm.
uh, not part of the trilogy, but the standalone after the trilogy was done. Yeah.
So I want to talk more about Her Name is Night, but before I do, since there's definitely some parts in that book that are probably near and dear to you, obviously, because of what you've gone through, with losing your dad and all that, but not autobiographical stuff, but, stuff close to you. So, but that does lead my question of during this mysterious time period when you weren't writing, I mean, you killed people for a living? You were an assassin? Is that what you're trying to tell me? That you just,
I don't know if we were a military family is code for it. No. I was not, I was an English teacher, and if I was an assassin, I couldn't tell you. And
or,
so, no, the book is not autobiographical because please, I don't want anybody emailing me and asking me, "Did you really live in a village and blah 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 and all this?" Because someone actually has. No, I have not. That is all part of imagination. But there are parts in there like
Mhm.
uh themes, right? So the
Yeah.
themes of family and the themes are those things are things that relate or what I was dealing with. And then where Nina's parents originate from, right?
Hmm.
The town is fake, but or the village I should say is fake, but it is like a combination sort of like the town or the village that my father is from
Okay.
and our lineage of chieftaincy and things like that. So all of those things are sort of are kind of in there that
Mhm.
are from me, but
Okay.
like all the actual actions that happen like that, like those are just part of imagination
Hmm.
that I used to kind of walk myself through. It was like my therapy through all these different like feelings and stuff like that. And so even Nina's father is very much, a version of, my dad and a couple of
Hmm.
other uncles,
Yeah.
and my father-in-law, even some great men who, I happened to have, I was lucky
Hmm.
enough to have in my life, and they became, Nina's father, the one who passed away.
Right.
So yeah, that's how a little bit of reality goes into fiction, but like all the actual stuff, the killings and stuff, are from my imagination. And if they aren't, I would just still keep telling you that. No, but they are.
If they aren't, I better watch myself here because
Right. Because I
if I
thought we were
see if I
friends.
see you
So
pull up in the driveway, I'd be like, oh man,
why would my
I got a
friend
gun
try
up
to
now.
put me out there like that and try to get me to admit to things in this US of A where you can't admit to something or else someone's going to come knocking exactly on
I,
your door, and I don't want that.
I just want to see if you'd slip up for the record, since this is going to be seen by so many people. I want to see if I can get you, catch you in a mistruth or something. And no one in this country has ever lies, so come on,
No, no, yes, everyone
never,
is truthful. I'm
never.
truthful though. Like truthfully, I am very much scared of everything, and so I live vicariously through my characters and all of the things that they do, which is why they do such wild things because I'm too
Mhm.
scared to do any of that.
It's funny that you say it was therapy because I was talking to someone recently just about that exact thing. I said, you go through things in life, and I think for me, writing did become therapy.
Mhm.
Just my life, last 5 years, things I've gone through. It's like the writing is, I think, what kind of kept me from, really staying in a dark place with stuff
Yes.
happening. It kind of just gives you that. I think it gives you purpose. It gives you hope.
Mhm.
Until you then submit a manuscript, out to like get an agent or to a publisher, then that hope can get crushed. But it doesn't always get crushed, and that's where that's I'd say that's where you get thicker skin, but maybe not necessarily. But that's kind of where you learn to, I think, especially if you get to a point where something gets rejected enough times, then you just have to go do something else, or you have to go down the path of self-publishing it or whatever it might be. But I think all that stuff that happens to you, I think only from a writing standpoint can make you better in the long run.
I agree
So,
with 100%.
yeah.
Even the trials and the tribulations, like you learn from that.
Hmm.
And I learned from all the massive rejections that I had.
Yeah.
The first book, I've learned from the three, agents that I've had. They were all very different and
Hmm.
and it was very different experience. And I've learned and so all of that you know, makes you a better writer, a
Hmm.
better business person, a better, hopefully, decision maker, and
Yeah.
hopefully you don't repeat the same mistakes twice. So I take that all as a learn, even the things that happen in life personally, though
Yeah.
we may, you know, hate that those things had happened or whatever, but like again, it is a learning
Hmm.
experience of how to deal and cope with things. And yeah, we all have to find the way to kind of muddle through those things that try to tear us down in
Hmm.
life. Mhm.
Absolutely agree with that. Well, life is so much of life is out of your control.
Yeah.
So how you handle what's thrown at you, I think, is really what strengthens you, what shows what's inside you. It's how you grow. And, I think especially now, we live in such a remarkable time in human history. I don't,
Mhm.
I try to remind my kids every now and then, sound like the old, old dad with the thing. It's like, but you guys don't get it. It wasn't very many generations ago everywhere in the world, but we're just here in the United States where, you got up in the morning and you worked, and that was the only way you got fed. There
Yeah.
wasn't someone walking around saying, "Hey, do you need a handout? Do you need this? Hey, we can help you." People did help each other, of course, but to get anything in life, you had to do something. Where now, and it's not a knock at society now, but now you can set up an online store. You can sell stuff that you will never touch, you will never package. You're just the middleman to click the button or do whatever you have to do, and you can earn a really good living just being basically a middleman of products.
Really?
Um,
See, even I didn't know that. I want to be a middle person.
Okay, well, we'll talk offline. I can get you hooked up. We got Bernie Madoff taught me a few things, so I'm going to show you how you can get some investment money and really change your life.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. I want to do that.
okay, we could take care of that. So no,
Okay.
no, but we live in this really remarkable time in human history. And it's a double-edged sword, though.
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking of stuff, with having a discussion and stuff tonight. It's kind of just things will pop in my head of maybe what questions to ask or whatever. And the thing that kind of strikes me about this time we live is we're in a position now where we can write books, we can do what we do, we can make, somewhat a living or a good living off it.
Mhm.
You go back, several hundred years, people didn't read, and very few of them wrote. And,
Mhm.
and there was actually a concerted effort that was taking place by whether it was the leadership or the well-to-do, where they didn't want people to know how to read. They didn't want people to do that because that was knowledge, and knowledge was power. And if you knew, so you would go places and people would read books to you or read. But the kicker with that then is you're getting the information from them. Is it accurate? Now we have these blessings and curses in our own hands that we can almost find out anything in life if you
Right.
have the ability to read. And if you don't know how to read, there's even so many programs out there that you can get that will teach you how to read. So it's really a blessed time to live because of the information age. The downside of that, I think, probably is that we are in the information age and there's so much stuff. You have to decide where you're going to spend your time.
Yep. That's true.
So,
Very true.
back to the books. So Her Name is Night is out. When you got everything originally for it, did you know it was going to be a series, or was it a one-off, or did you have two books done at the time?
Yeah, no. When I wrote the book, and when I even like queried it, it was just like a one and done because I was like, listen,
Okay.
I just want to get like an agent for one book. I wasn't even gonna try to be greedy and try to like go for two or whatever. But I mean, I did while I was writing it, fall in love with the characters and the
Hmm.
story and the idea of, the African Tribal Council and all of that, that I was like, I could go on. I could
Hmm.
still go on past, three books, but
Yeah.
and you never know, like maybe there'll be like a prequel and because there are different aspects of it that I think would
Mhm.
be interesting to kind of like delve into. But like my agent asked, would you consider making it a two? And I was like, oh yeah, sure. And then so
Mhm.
that's my first deal with Thomas and Mercer was a two-book deal
Okay.
with a plan to be like three books, to have a
Hmm.
three-book arc. And
Yeah.
so I really had to stretch, rewrite the ending so that it was left open-ended,
Hmm.
because I did close some things off after, by the end of the first book.
Okay.
Okay. Originally, and then I just kind of opened some things up, and put some things in to kind of broaden it and make it so that there's something that can go on into the next and then into the last.
Hmm. You had to have a reason for them to come at night.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. To
And then
come
Thomas and Mercer made you end it with night.
and then
So,
ended. And I was like, but why? But like, that's fine,
yeah.
because there's always ways to like, a little bit get around. And maybe one day they'll allow me to do that
Mm.
prequel, or, whatever.
I think we had talked about that when it was getting ready to come out. I think we chatted. Maybe it was online on Instant Messenger or whatever. And I was still, and I'm still learning so much about the business that my initial thought is, man, why would you kill something when it seems to be, from all the numbers, you see it from an outsider's perspective, it seems like you're getting good reviews, you're getting good ratings. Amazon can promote the heck out of their authors, their Thomas and
Mhm,
Mercer authors. Why would they do it? But they're also, they really know what they're doing when it comes to their model. So I assume they have this vision with books that get them out in three, because that's pretty common. I know people that have done now multiple three-book series comes out of three, and then they go and get a brand new one, new characters, and they do another
mhm,
three. So,
mhm,
and I think in a way it's a good thing, because I've grew up reading a lot of Tom Clancy books, and then that kind of morphed into Vince Flynn when I was late in college, or end of high school, I guess early college.
mhm,
And those characters end up being 20 books long. Um, and I get why publishers do that, but now that I'm on the side of creating a series,
mhm,
I also see why people don't want to do it. Which is part of why I wanted to do a role for the Body Man, not do a specific character, because
mhm.
it was like I don't want to be pigeonholed into knowing that I have this Nick Jordan character that's going to be start every book and end every book. It's like,
Right.
I might want to kill Nick one of these days.
Right.
Well, you can't if you've got a four-book deal and people are expecting that character.
Mhm,
So I don't know. In some ways, that's why I'm kind of glad I'm in the position I'm at, is you kind of have that creative control where you can decide, okay, do I want to keep going with this? Do I want to keep this character? I like being, I don't know, I like not being pigeonholed. And I think that takes some of the joy out of writing, which leads me to a question I'm going to ask. But are you, because for me, I like the creative of just sitting down at night, having a vision of where I'm going, but I'm a lot of times flying by the seat of my pants. So are you an outliner or are you a pantser?
No, I knew you were gonna ask me that, daggone.
You knew it was coming, huh?
Don't like the term pantser.
Set you up. Okay.
I
Well,
don't because let's be honest here.
skirter. I mean, what terminology would you
No,
like?
no, it has nothing to do with because I'm a woman. Don't go
No, I mean
there.
like
No,
seat of your
no, no, no.
pants. Seat of-
What I'm trying to say is, what I think, what I believe is I don't like outlining. I'm not a big outliner. I feel
Mhm.
like if I outline, then I've basically just told the story and it's not exciting for me anymore.
Sure,
And
I agree with that.
like, write it because I'm like, well, I kind of already did,
Right. You're just adding extra words now,
I'm just
basically.
adding extra words and it feels
Yeah.
like torture because there's no surprise.
Right.
But I'm not a pantser because even though I don't like to outline, I am always constantly thinking of the story, of
Hmm.
the characters and the conflict and how I'm going to write this story. So
Okay.
I might not write the story, I mean, the outline, but the outline is always constantly going in my head. And
Mhm.
so because I'm constantly planning, thinking, and revising in my head before I actually put pen to paper, um, it's not to me pantsing. It is
Okay.
to me outlining, visually.
Hmm.
But then whatever I have in my head, I've got that, I've got my A and then I've got, the end point. I'm writing it and things may change. Everything
Hmm.
is fluid. And so what I like to call, and I think I might have heard, it might have been Bob Dugoni who said it, I think. But
Hmm.
like he called it like a discovery writer. And
Okay.
that's what I find that I am. And then I was on a panel, we were talking about Strangers on a Train by Patricia Highsmith on Saturday, and we were talking about this very same thing. And I was explaining to them why I don't want to call myself a pantser. But like, she, oh my gosh, now I can't remember what she said it, but there are other ways,
Yeah.
of saying, discovery and what I can't remember. It'll come to me when we're done and I'll text it to you or
You'll
something
text it
like
to
that.
me.
But like there are, like we're always thinking of these things. We
Yeah.
like to discover our writing while we're writing it. But if you tell me right now, you probably have like the idea of the story in your head and you
Right.
know what your character is and where they're going and stuff. You're just actually just penning it now as you're
Mhm.
writing it instead of having it in outline. So you're
Right.
not really pantsing it. To me, pantsing is if someone says, okay, we're going to have a free write right now of this
Hmm.
flash prompt. Now
Sure.
you are writing something that someone has literally just given you that prompt. That to me is pantsing because you're just writing off the cuff right there. But when we are thinking about the stuff, we're still plotting, we're still outlining, but we're just doing it in our head instead of on paper or on computer.
I feel like my English teacher just kind of put me in my place because I was,
Oh,
bringing something up in class that I shouldn't have. So
oh no, no, no. I
lesson
just
learned. No, no,
wanted,
no.
and
I'm
that might
totally kidding.
sound,
Totally
I
kidding
don't know,
with
that
that.
might sound, some people will be like, oh yeah, I think it's just too easy to call it pantsing.
No, I agree
So,
actually.
yeah, because we really think about it. Like it's
Yeah.
not by the seat of our pants, right? Like I obsess over these things. It might
Right.
take me a long time to sit down and it does, because I
Yeah.
like to procrastinate. But like even if I'm watching my Netflix that I love that you tried to take away from me earlier when you said give something up. No, but even when I'm watching my Netflix, I will find that I start thinking about like my story,
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay, this is, and then I might even jot something down. So I've got
Hmm.
like post-it notes all over my desk is a big mess of post-it notes because
Hmm.
I'll jot down ideas, but these are ideas that I'm constantly, thinking of. And so yeah.
I am listening to you, but I'm trying to pull it up so I can use it as an example. So I have not to be able to see it, but I have a notes section on my phone, my iPhone, because it gets backed up every night, and I pay for the big service that
Okay.
downloads because I have pictures. So
Mm-hmm.
I have something for my podcast. I have something for my book that's coming out next
Mm-hmm.
year,
Mm-hmm.
which is a female assassin. And no, I didn't steal the idea from you.
Oh no, no, there
Um,
could be many. Hey,
there
maybe they
can be
can work
many.
together one day.
Maybe. So,
Hmm.
I've got something for book three of the Body Man series on here. I have my end of the year book that's coming out, Babylon Will Rise. And just like what you said, I'll be on a walk, I'll be doing something, and one of those books will just ping into my head as my kind of where my imagination's going, and I'll just start. I do a lot of voice stuff, so then I try to read it later, and it's rough because this thing
Yeah.
doesn't like my voice, I guess. But that's where I'll throw the ideas down so that I'll be
Hmm.
like, oh yeah, that's right. When I actually start, getting back to writing on that series or that book, I'll read through all the notes, and that'll be the first thing I do is read through my notes. And then that helps kind of give me my plan of where I'm going forward. So
And see, so you have a plan, you just
yes, I
thought
do.
it through instead of, sitting down and like writing this, this detailed version of how
Right.
everything, and I mean, it works. I mean, I commend everyone who can do that, I think, and still like write the book and enjoy it. I think that's actually really great, even for,
Hmm.
people who have long series, because even
Right.
when you were talking about people with long series versus like the trilogy, and I've seen those books that go on for like 10,
Hmm.
20, and I'm like, man, how do you do that? Like that's awesome. I think that's great. And but then, after a while it becomes a little bit easier because you've got all of that down.
Right.
Who the people are going to be. You have like a method, a formula that you're
Hmm.
always going to follow, in your books for those long series. But you're always constantly thinking about it. And
Yeah.
so that's why I want to give us credit. Like we don't just fly by the seat of our pants or skirts or nothing at all if that's what we're not going to wear. But like, we're always thinking and doing something. And you have your electronic notes and I have
Hmm.
you know, my post-its, but I do also do it on my phone too, like when I'm driving,
Hmm.
and I also do like audio. And sometimes a scene will come, especially on long trips, if I'm driving like, to something and it's like a few hours, like a scene will come and I'll start writing it, and you're right, it's horrible.
Hmm.
And the audio doesn't like do any like period. So it's like just one long lump of thing.
Hmm.
But at least I got like some sort of words down and I
Yeah.
got that scene and I can come back to it later. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of different things that we employ in
Yeah.
our discovery.
I do. So I do post-it notes as well. So my pad and my other working areas over there, and I have a couple on my because I have like one of these lap pads that I put my
Mhm.
laptop on. So anywhere I go in the house, or if I'm go up to the mountains, I'll bring that a lot of times with me just so
Right,
I can have
same.
that
Hmm.
stable place. So I have sticky notes on there as well. So I discovered something with the book that's the Babylon Will Rise, my book coming out at the end of this year. I had actually written it a while back, and so
Hmm.
I'm adding to it. It was a smaller novel. It was
Hmm.
not a novella, but it wasn't big enough for a full-length novel, so I kind of went in and revamped it. Well, in the
Hmm.
course of revamping, I had already written Breach of Trust, which is the book that just came out in June.
Hmm.
Well, I had a character in there named Sam. Well, I realized as I went back to this story I'd written several years ago, I had another central character with a female named Sam, and I'm like, well, that's just not going to work.
Right.
So I've got like a sticky note there that I look at like every time I go to write that says
Oh.
change Sam's name. And I
Hmm.
still haven't put the fortitude in yet to go, what do I want her to be? Because every time I'm typing now on that book, I'll be like, oh, well, Sam said this. I'm like, oh, crap, man, she's not going to be Sam by the time this book comes out. What's she going to be? And I'm like, I don't know. My find and replace is going to be really interesting when I get to that part. I'm going to have to go through it again to make sure I did my find and replace correctly.
That's
So,
funny you say that. I love, you know what? I'll change a name like three, four, five, 10 times throughout the book, and then I'll forget. And then both my agent and my editor are like, what was the name again? And I just assign when I'm doing like when I have to tell them, hey, this is my plan. And
right.
they already, so now they're like, oh yes, Julia or whatever her name is going to be, because they know that it's going to be like 10 names and whatever. So now I just give them like Jane, Bob, Bill, because I know it's going to
You know
change.
it's going to
Yeah,
change.
but I like a name, so that's I put a lot of thought into the names that
Yeah.
they end up being, and so yeah, Sam. I like Sam for a woman's name because it can be, it's ambiguous in a way, and
Right.
yeah, I really like those kinds of names. Yeah.
Well, and that's why I did it for Breach of Trust that just came out because, spoiler alert for anyone that's seeing this is there's a new apprentice in this book. The former apprentice for the Body Man is killed at the end of the first book, and so when I first introduced this character, I want it to be Sam, and no one knows that actually her name is Samantha.
Hmm.
And so then the president actually is the one that reveals it like halfway or three quarters in. So I liked having
Cool.
that little play on it.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I can't really have another Samantha in my end of the year book. So, um,
Well, her
I'll
name is
figure
gonna have to
something.
be Alex then or something. I don't know.
So yeah, well, I'll ping you when I'm ready for that. Like, give me some suggestions. But well, talk about that real quick because I know they are important to me. So, where do you get your inspiration for names? Because they are so crucial, I think, and they kind of they give another depth to a character. So where does that come from for you? Especially if you change them, why do you change them?
I changed them because that during my discovery of, my characters, like I feel like okay, so even, and I'm sure this is like for everyone, but like, in the Ghanaian culture, in a lot of, I guess, culture, well, even in American culture or whatever, like names are important.
Hmm.
But in Ghanaian culture and African culture, like names signify like how this person is going to be, or
Okay.
character, the kind of character that the parents hope that, that this child is going to be. And so there's a lot of
Mhm.
importance placed upon names.
Yeah.
And so that's why when I'm going through all of my names, I feel like the name has to sound right. Like if I am writing a guy and I'm like, oh man, this is supposed to be like a really hot guy. Does he have like a hot guy name and stuff like that? Because this is the guy that I'm envisioning. And if I was this character and I'm like attracted to this guy, then I need him to have a cool name so that I could be like, oh, such and such.
Hmm.
And the same with my protagonist. She has to me have a really cool name. Like Nina, I thought was like really, really cool. And like
Hmm.
Jack, which is another, ambiguous name. Her name is Jacinda, but she goes by
Hmm.
Jack because she's not like a girly girl, but she's gonna go through some things. So she's really cool and she does things. She likes to hookah and she does things, that are kind of like Jack like,
Hmm.
Jack is in guy or Jack is in girl or Jack is in, whatever. And
Yeah,
so
I
it
like that.
takes, her it take but and Jack I think is the only one who I knew what her name was going to be from the very beginning,
From the
because
get-go.
I
Okay.
was like, I think that name was just so cool and I wanted her to have a name that was ambiguous, that could be taken as a guy or a girl, but she's female from the beginning. And
Hmm.
so yeah, so we place a lot of meaning,
Hmm.
to our names, the
Yeah.
same, that I did, with my kids when they were born, and
Hmm.
and um and things like that. So I just that's why names to me, and I'll change it in a heartbeat. I'll have something, and then I hear someone or see someone on the street and someone has called. I'm like, man, that name is really nice, and it like kind of sticks to me,
Yeah, it
and it
connects with you.
just, and I'm just like, man, I really, really love that name. And so then I just like take the name.
Okay. I like
Mhm.
that. Yeah, I think names are important when I'm doing I don't do it as much for the US, like my characters here that are kind of American. But if I'm doing anything overseas, that's typically what I'll do is I'll pull up like a list of their most popular names, especially in
Yeah.
the middle. I have a lot of characters in the Middle East with
Hmm.
the next couple books, and
Hmm.
so I'll go and because they're not names that I know a few,
Hmm.
Mohammed, and a few things just from news and life, but I try to actually get into, and then I try to break down of, okay, what is the meaning behind those names? Because if I
Yeah.
have someone that's going to be very powerful, that's going to be a strong character, I want to make sure that name reflects a strength or reflects a certain power or whatever. Because for that culture, that's an important thing. So,
Absolutely.
and I think
Yep.
that's a fun part of writing, and that's the part that I really end up enjoying is
Mhm.
trying to, as best I can, get all those details right. So that if someone does read my book and they're from someone else, I don't want, if I have an Italian character, I'm not going to call him Roger. Hey,
Mhm.
Roger from Italy, like Roger, that's not an
Well,
Italian.
Roger can be from Italy,
Well, he
like
could
sometimes we could
be,
just
but
have it be a Roger.
he's not typically.
Like my dad is from Ghana, but like his American name is Herbert, so or so he could be a Herbert, but but he has his Ghanaian name, and so
Right.
that could be an Italian, Roger, Rogero, I don't know. Let me
Rogerio.
not try. Yeah,
Rogerio could be it. There we
do
go.
not try to do an Italian accent because I cannot. But yeah, but I understand what you're saying though.
Yeah.
Like, you want a name that showcases that highlights, the culture that they're from. And you're right that international, cultures, they definitely put a lot of um depth and merit into names. And so
Mm.
you want to get it right, as do I. So yeah, yeah, it's very important.
Yeah, it's definitely important.
Anyone
But
who's listening, pay attention to names.
I think they're making a note of it. Yes, ma'am. They're writing it down right now. Names are important. If I'm going to write a book, because Yasmin and Eric are going to come look at the names and be like, That's not what they would name that person
I'm
if
gonna
they were named."
grade you like I used to do my seventh and eighth graders. You better not.
Oh goodness, the red pen's coming out. Do you totally didn't expect to ask this one, but do you miss teaching? Is it something that you ever think back to and go, man, or is something you would do again in the future, or that part of life has passed and you're okay with that?
That part of life has passed, but I do miss teaching because once a teacher, I think always a teacher. And I
Hmm.
love, and even that's why, if I'll go to conferences and I'll like teach a session, like
Yeah.
that is my way of like getting back into teaching, though
Hmm.
teaching adults is much different. But I loved teaching. I miss teaching like some of the content, like when we
Hmm.
were teaching the books. And my favorite time was when it would be around Halloween time, because then especially with my seventh graders, I would be teaching them these like Edgar Allan Poe and the most dangerous game, like those hard hitting, like that we're talking about death and killing, even in my seventh grade classes, you know what I
Right.
mean? And then we're like running mock trials, based
Hmm.
on those. So I like that whole, like the things that you can come up with to
Yeah.
make reading and writing and all that fun and engaging for the students. And I loved
Hmm.
them being so involved and engaged in these stories, where if we were
Hmm.
just reading the usual texts and doing it the usual way without like the mock trials and
Hmm.
them being able to decide if someone like is guilty or not based off of these short stories.
Right.
um their discovery of the love of reading, because they can have all these different imaginations. That's what I miss doing. And
Yeah.
they had like fresh new ones. You never,
Hmm.
when you have that kid that's like, oh my gosh, they have that aha moment of
Yeah.
connection with the author, and the author, what the author is trying to say in the message. Like, you just can't beat, that feeling that,
That
yes,
feeling.
like I really got through to this kid.
And I think though you hit on it though. I think that's something that you can definitely have that opportunity going forward with your just involvement with different conferences and different groups is you're teaching. And you're also the kind of the neat thing about it, and just thinking about it is when you're in school and you're teaching, those kids don't have a choice. They have to take your class. They're stuck in your class.
They
And if
are.
if after 2 days they're like, boy, this teacher is mean. Too bad. Suck it up. That's your teacher for the rest of the semester or the rest of the
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
Um, but with what you're teaching going forward, you almost have a much more captivated audience because people that are going to conferences, people that are going to your panels, they're going because that's what they want to do.
Mhm.
Maybe there's a few people forced to go, but as a general
Mhm.
rule, if you're being forced to go to a conference, you're going to be a very unhappy person. You want to
Yes,
be there.
totally. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, so it is it is different because people who come to your whatever you're doing, they choose to come, and so
Yeah.
they're coming hopefully with an openness and a
Hmm.
willingness to learn what it is that you have to offer them, and hopefully
Yeah.
they're able to apply something
Hmm.
from what you're giving them to whatever it is that they're doing. And I'm never trying to reinvent the wheel and tell them that you must do it my way, because
Hmm.
my way is just the way that works for Yasmin.
Right.
And I'm just sharing with you what works for me. And if something resonates, then definitely use it. And if not, then just, hey, we've had a great 50 minutes together, or whatever. And
Buy
so
my
like
book.
that's right, exactly, by my book. But yeah, but like because they come with choice, that makes it's almost like, when my seventh graders, eighth graders, and even high schoolers get that aha moment, then they, want to know more. And so as the adults come by choice, they want to know more. The discussion can be on an even deeper level because
Gotcha.
they want to know like more, and they want to like really talk about craft. And I
Hmm.
love talking about the craft of writing and even learning from them how
Hmm.
they do things, because they're doing things that I hadn't even thought of, because
Yeah.
we're always working in a silo and we only
Hmm.
know like our things. So I'm learning as well as they're learning.
Right. No, that's fascinating. So, speaking of the learning aspect, and before we talk about not what she seems, talk about with me for a second or a couple minutes, your involvement in, several different organizations, what you're involved in, how rewarding it is for you to, to deal with these various groups of writers and in different contexts. Talk about that for a minute.
Sure. So yeah, so I'm involved in like Sisters in Crime, which is not just for sisters.
I
It
learned.
is for everyone. So please everyone join. It is a fantastic organization, and it has a wealth of resources for the person who is in any stage of writing, and
Hmm.
maybe not even writing at all if they're just a lover of books or whatever. But yeah, so I'm on the board for Sync Sisters in Crime, and I became involved in Sync because Sync and their Eleanor Taylor Bland Award for Emerging Writers of Colors was so significant in my initial success, right? It is,
Right.
I got that award, and it is something that kind of I was able to spring off of, and help get me, my recognition, like I said, like I had said a while
Hmm.
ago, for my deal and stuff like that. um and they're so welcoming, and I wanted to like give back to that, so I've always been involved with them. But then also with like my Crime Writers of Color, which is a huge group of like 400 members, and
Okay.
we're always, we're on our listserv, and we're always like helping each other. So I really feel like when you get that community,
Hmm.
and you have people help you, because I
Hmm.
didn't, when I came back to writing, and I decided I was going to start querying in 2020 and all that, I had just recently gotten in like Twitter and social media, like maybe a
Right.
couple of years ago. And so I didn't know how these days there's no more publisher
Hmm.
marketplace, the big book, right? There's
Yeah.
social media, there's Twitter, and that's how
Right.
you have to, and there's websites, and that's how you have to find who your agents are.
Hmm.
And you have to build a community so people can tell you their experiences with this agent, or can tell you about a fellowship or a scholarship, or
Right.
whatever. And so those are the things that helped me to get prepared to query, and do all those things, to become an editor, because I do
Hmm.
freelance editing as well, and I love being able to help my clients with their books. So when I'm not writing mine, I'm helping others, with theirs. And there is a huge love, of that. And I wouldn't have been able to do that without all of these different communities,
Hmm.
and these different groups that I've become a part of. And so by me being a part of them, and by me going to conferences, and sharing, what I've learned in
Right.
my few years as a published author with people who come, it's me giving back and
Hmm.
me talking about craft and me learning from them. And it is continuing to build,
Hmm.
community and for everyone to see that, it took me over 20 years to, to publish my first book and to
Right.
get where I am. It's not something that just happened, like it's maybe sometimes does for some people. And so I hope that in seeing me, they can see that, like you said, perseverance
Hmm.
and really a belief in yourself
Yeah.
and being able to turn around and will pivot and do something else to
Hmm.
get you where you want to be. If that road that you initially thought isn't working for you, you pivot. And
Yeah.
if you aren't able to, be published by like a big publisher or a traditional publish, maybe you have the wherewithal, like Yasmin does not, to self-publish and to be huge doing that, like
Yeah.
Eric is.
No.
And so I look to people like, because I'm like, man, you have a courage that I do not. Like I'm just unable to do that. And
Mhm.
I give everyone all the, the glory for that. But like, yeah, so that's what community is for me. And that's why I try to involve myself in as many as I can, because I also just like learning from people.
Yeah. No, well, and I think that's so a couple points to that would be first of all would be the amazing thing, and you're a shining light of it is authors. When you first get into this, you tend to think it's got to be very competitive. It's got to be cutthroat. Like I'm not going to help you. Couldn't be. It's 180-degree turn from that. It is absolutely not that. And so, and you're doing it yourself. Is you're learning from other people, and then you're turning around and teaching other people that. And it's not a competition. It's not, well, if you go buy, if you go buy my book, you're not going to
Yeah.
buy this book, or if someone doesn't buy my book, that's okay.
Yeah.
There's so many people out there that want to read books. I wish there was more,
Yeah.
because this you would think there's billions out there available to, but you look at the sales numbers and you realize, billions of people aren't buying books every year. But that's okay. But that's the thing. There's enough growth there that
Mhm.
hopefully people will continue to find whatever genre, whatever medium, and that's changed dramatically. I mean, when you first started querying and looking or writing your first book in the early 2000s, ebooks really weren't a thing. I think the ebook revolution or kind of thing happened, what, 2007, 2010, somewhere in that, where it kind of came on board. And then all of a sudden, and I remember like before I was even writing, there was talk about, yeah, eventually ebooks are going to take over, like traditional printed books. And you're like, no way, that's never going
Right.
to happen. I will say my numbers are much higher for ebook sales than they are for physical copies.
Really?
No comparison, actually, most of the time. There might be periods where the paperbacks, or when it first comes out, our hardcovers are selling really well, but the ebooks very quickly take over, and that's what people are doing. And at first, I was against them years ago because I was like, man, I like, I've got a few behind me. I like holding physical books. It's like, yeah, but people don't want when you can have a device that has 1,000 books on it, you can only have 50 books on a shelf.
Yeah.
And they're also those books are more expensive than an ebook typically most of the time. So yeah, it's again, it's always changing, so you have to change with it.
Hmm.
As for going out and being indie and doing that on your own, that is absolutely not for everybody. I've talked on
Hmm.
other podcasts why I did it, and I don't know that I'll do it forever either. It's something that
Right.
kind of opened up and I'm enjoying it, but it might get to a point where I don't want to do it anymore. And I want to publish with Yasmin. I want to be I want to be with the cool kids on the couch. I don't want to be stuck over here. No, no,
You're
but
a cool kid where you are
I
too.
was going to
So
say, there's none of that. I'm joking with that
yeah,
because there's
yeah,
none
yeah.
of that. It's more of, do you want to take on all the responsibilities, or do you want just a good chunk? Because even for you, with what you're doing, you're not just writing a story, going, yeah, this is good, and sending it off, and then going, I'll go write my next story.
Hmm.
No, there's so much more than that. You're out marketing. You're hitting talking to me on the podcast
Yeah.
because you're trying to get an audience out there to hear about your stories, and then you're going to go to conferences and you're going to get on panels and you're going to share knowledge. But at the same time, that's time. That's an effort on your part where that stuff didn't exist 25, 30 years ago.
Exactly.
It was you wrote a book and you sent it to an agent or whatever, or a publisher even at one point, and you never touched it again. That doesn't happen
Hmm.
anymore. So The world has definitely changed.
Good old days.
The good old days. Well, speaking of the good old days, now we're talking about not what she seems. So
Which
I love that it's set in South Carolina, which,
Mhm.
it's where you are. It's close to where I am. I'm like 6 miles from the line, I guess. We're not far, but spent a lot of
Okay.
time, spent a chunk of my life in South Carolina. So how did the tell about the story and how did it come about? Because especially you started something new. You had a three-part series and you're jumping into something brand new. So how did that
Yeah.
work?
Brand new in terms of, the type of subgenre. It's not a action thriller,
Hmm.
or spy espionage, whatever. It is a good old domestic, suspense or psychological, whatever you want to call it, but it's, set, like you said, in South Carolina in a fictional town.
Hmm.
So when you South Carolinians read it, don't come for me about, the landscape or anything, because Yaz had to make it how she needed it to be for the things that happen in the book. Okay. But
Love
but
it.
yeah, like, so I've been in South Carolina for many years.
Hmm.
This is not where I'm from, but like I love it because I think that it is a very haunting place. And I say that because it's very beautiful and idyllic, and it's
Hmm.
very and it's got like just beautiful lush greenery, especially when you're
Yeah.
moving closer to the like coast, and you've got a little bit of beach, but then you from the beach to the low country where you're in the swamps, and
Mm.
and in the thick of all this like marsh and stuff like that. And so I just love that, you know there's so much also history,
Yeah.
like I said, it's a beautiful place, but it also has like dark history and stuff,
Hmm.
right? And so this book is very much of, a town that is very beautiful, on the outside, and the protagonist, and even the big baddie, there are many antagonists in the book, but like the ultimate villain or whatever in the book is, also someone who looks wonderful and perfect, but like
Hmm.
they aren't what they outwardly
What they seem.
present,
Yeah.
right? There's a darker, more sinister underlining thing to the protagonist, to even the protagonist family, everything, everybody, has a couple of sides to them, the one that they project and the one that, is
Hmm.
really them. And so this book is about, two people who have lived under different masks, that either society has put on them, like they did
Hmm.
with my protagonist Jack, or that they live under on purpose so that they can do what they want to do,
Hmm.
in the dark. And so that's really what I wanted to kind of discuss, um, and play around with
Hmm.
this book, a cat and mouse, or a one the poem. And oh my gosh, now that I'm talking to you, um her name misses me, but I mean, gosh, I love her. But anyway, she wrote, the poem about like the spider and the fly, and step into my parlor, said the spider to the fly. And so
I know
that
her.
is okay. And I mean,
Okay.
her name is right on and I know it, and I
Okay.
could have told you that maybe an hour ago, but now it's gone. That you got, look it up. And if you read the whole thing, it's supposed to be like a children's, poem, but it's very sinister, you know what I mean? And so that was something that inspired this story, was that poem, because
Mm.
it's very much that. And then, and some other things too. And so yeah,
Mm.
so that's where I mean, the story just comes from.
That's awesome though. See, that's the creative side that's I think such a blessing, and you don't know though where it's going to come from. You don't
Mhm.
know what you're going to read that's going to spark an idea, and then that idea, that's the amazing thing about this is a simple idea of what runs through your brain in a couple seconds can foster, you've got four novels behind you.
Yeah.
That's how not how easy, because there's nothing easy about it, but that's how that process can start with that one little idea. Your creative juices kind of take over, and before you know it, you've got a full novel.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to encourage people is, because I think they look at what we've done with writing novels, and they're like, man, that's just too much work. And it's like, yeah, tell you from the get-go, it's a lot of work. Anyone that says it's a piece of cake is either a habitual liar
Yeah.
or a sometimes liar, but
Yeah.
they're a liar. Either way, they're under that thing because it's going to be a lot of work. But again, if you enjoy doing it, if you find something you like in life, it's not really that much work.
Yeah.
You're gonna, because if you're really enjoying it, then you're doing something with your time that you're having generally speaking, a good time doing. And I think most of the time with stories, that's what we're doing. We're getting ready, and there's hard times obviously that kick in with it, but to be able to see it start as just a little germ of an idea and then grow into this big, huge, towering plant is pretty remarkable.
Yeah,
So.
exactly.
So is this another series starting, or is this a standalone? Where are we going with Not What She Seems?
Yeah, this is a standalone. I can't be like
It's a
those
standalone.
other writers that you
Okay.
mentioned who can have all these series, these multiple series of, because it takes me a minute, it took me a minute to come up with Nina. And so
Yeah.
I would need a minute to really come up. I have to refresh from her, and I needed to cleanse my palate with a different story, a
Okay.
different kind of protagonist who handles herself and her conflict in a way that's different from Nina.
Mhm.
This is not someone who has experience in, weaponry or in, militaristic skills or,
Mhm.
or anything like that. This is not someone who is an assassin. She is a research assistant at a college.
Mhm.
Okay, so when she comes up against, someone who is a killer, the way she handles it is very different, and she has to call upon her experience with her grandfather and her father, who
Okay.
were former police, to help her
Mhm.
figure out how I'm going to overcome this obstacle of this
Mhm.
person, who is definitely a killer and nobody else believes me, which is pretty
Mhm.
much the premise of the story. And so it was a challenge that I was happy to embark on,
Mhm.
to figure out how is she going to do these things, and how will I still keep my readers engaged who probably expect for her to be leaping off of buildings and running into
Right.
conflict, firing off her guns and throwing her blades and stuff like that, and she's not doing that.
Mhm.
So I enjoyed that because I'm like, oh yeah, Jack is more me because she doesn't know how to fight and I don't know how to fight. I mean, I don't know how I'll be if someone were to attack me. I would hope that I can like try to sort of defend myself. I think I can, fight or flight,
Your
right?
inner Nina might take
My
over. You
inner
never
Nina will come out. Yeah, yeah. Like I just put that out there. If someone comes for me, I'm going to give you a run for your money. I don't know how, but I feel it in me that it's
know.
going to come out.
That
But
hidden sig that you have is
that,
going to come
yes,
out, and you're just going to
something
pop
is
a few.
going to come out, and then I'm going to
Exactly.
really show you that you underestimated me. And that's kind of like Jack too. Jack is not me though,
Mhm.
um but yeah, so I like that. And then even with like the next one, whoever and however she's going to have some skills that are going to be different
Mhm.
from Jack, right? In how she handles the conflict that she's going to be in.
Yeah.
And so that's what I kind of like to I am someone who really likes like character study and how these people act, whether, and how they use their talents and even
Right.
hidden talents that they don't know that they have to overcome adversity. That's my thing.
I think that's a good way to transition to our final question. So, I think that's beautifully well said. So, my final question
Is what's for
is,
dinner?
it
Because I'm
might be,
always thinking about food.
I mean, I
Sorry.
haven't had dinner yet, honestly, so I do need to eat dinner after this, but probably nothing as
He's
glamorous.
not going to have anything, everybody, except for a glass of water, or
No,
probably
I'm
more.
not. I'm probably gonna have a fillet. What are you talking about? I got
Okay.
some fillets
That's right. He
in the
just
fridge.
got off of fasting.
Well, I'm doing kind of more carnivore right now for a period of time. So I eat a lot of meats and have some eggs and I do a dairy version of it. So I did treat myself. I was out hiking yesterday for a while and it was really hot and I had a good hike and I was heading back home and didn't have my kids or anything. And I was like, a little frozen yogurt can't hurt. So I swung through and, I had about 4 ounces. I figured 100 calories. I've earned that. I've worked that off at least in this. I've sweated it out in this heat. So I kind of broke it a little bit
Or
last
frozen
night. But
yogurt. It was still a frozen yogurt, which is still a little bit more healthy than the flat out like Haagen-Dazs that I would want. Ben
well,
and Jerry.
I drove
Ask.
by the ice cream place that I stopped at with a friend last month and went to the
Uh,
frozen yogurt stiff because I figured, man, that's going to be like 300 or 400 calories and a lot more sugar. So I went with the no, yeah, I went with the better option.
of
Again,
course.
I've got goals, and
Mhm. Yes.
just like when you're writing, if you have goals, how do you accomplish your goal? Well, you have to, you can cheat a little bit. You can have, because life's short. You better
Mhm.
find your cheats, but those
Yeah.
cheats can overcome and take over everything if you're not careful. So you just have to be disciplined. That's how you've got your novels. That's how I got mine.
Yeah.
You have to be disciplined. So, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking you'll agree with me that life is like a book. You've got a first page.
Mhm.
Oh, this is my final question, by the way. You got a first page, you have a last page. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how people look at it, you don't know how many pages are going to be in between that.
Mhm.
But as a writer, and I've read your book, so I know you can write,
Can
you
I?
get you can. Or you
Okay.
got a good ghostwriter, but I'm pretty sure you write it. So pretty darn sure.
Mhm.
You get to write your last page. What would Yasmin want her last page to say?
Mm.
Little bit deeper than what's for dinner. Maybe.
It was deeper than you mean like what I want my last picture to say like about me or about like just
However, people have taken this question a lot of different ways. It can be you can go philosophical, you can go more family. I mean, there's no rules on this. It's you get to write. You get to write stories for a living. What do you want that last page that people read to say? And there's no wrong answer either. I've had some colorful, interesting, surprising answers.
I guess, oh gosh, yeah, mine's not going to be like prolific or anything because I guess what I would want the last page to just really say is like, what's next? Because I want to move on to the next thing. I don't want it to stop.
I love
So
that.
my thing is going to be like, what's next? Or no, maybe stay tuned or something like that. Like, so that because something else is going to be coming, God willing. Yes.
Something else is coming. We just don't know what
Mhm.
it is. So I
We
will say
don't.
you're in good company because the other person that gave an answer very similar to yours, which surprised me, was Meg Gardner was on.
Mhm.
I don't know when I filmed it with Meg, maybe about 4 or 6 weeks ago.
Mhm.
And she was just like with your what's next. I asked the same question. You never know. I've had all kinds of answers to that question. That's
Mhm.
why I ask it because I just don't, what puts people on the spot, but what's their answer going to be? And she just flat out, no hesitation or whatever. And she said, to be continued. And I was
Oh,
like,
I like that.
that's the answer right there. To be continued. And none of us know what that to be continued will be. And I also think that's the beauty of life. You could look at it and say it's scary, but it's kind of beautiful in a way of you don't know what's coming. So what I try to not implore people, what I try to do with my life is okay, just live the best version you can now because you don't know when it's going to stop. You don't know
Mhm.
what's going to happen next. So what can you do now? Treat people right.
Mhm.
Finish your book. Be a good dad. All the important things. Just put those all in a big bowl of life and try to make sure that that's how you live it.
Yep.
So, well, awesome. Well, thank you for coming on. I'm glad we did this. We want people to get, not what she seems, that we want them to get the Nina Knight trilogy. So, what's the easiest way for people to find your books? Where should they go?
So you can go to wherever books are sold. I guess if you the easiest, would be, to go to Amazon, I suppose. But I also like to promote like bookshop dot
Yeah,
org
absolutely.
and like, all books, Barnes and Noble, your indie store. You can go to your indie store, and if they don't have it in the store, they probably have it, on their online store. And so
Mhm.
just ask them to order it and they'll get it right to you. So anywhere. Just go get them. My
So,
books, Eric's
yeah.
books, everyone's books. Reading is fundamental, says
We
the
will.
English teacher to you.
Yeah, the English teacher just came out with that one. Reading is fundamental. We'll put your website in the bottom too. That way people can go to your website and they can find out more about you.
Mhm.
Thank you for coming on, my friend. Congratulations on book number 4, and I can't wait to hear about book number 5.
Thank you so much, Eric.
Take care.
All right, you too. Bye.